would always give Feargal my microphone. What greater love has man for a colleague in business than to give him his microphone? How are you, sir? Very good morning to you.
Very well, and it's great to see brightness in the
Do you
studio
know
this
something?
morning.
Brightness in the studio, brightness in the sky. That, I was musing earlier, that's not really the tree line of Daisy Hill Wood. That's the shimmering mirage of North Africa coming across the Mediterranean, and the blue sky is there. It would be nice, wouldn't it? Just
Yeah,
for a
but
day or two.
Daisy Hill Wood's very nice too. Yeah.
In Daisy Hill Nurseries,
You know what they say? You have to always have a sense of belonging.
you do, and I do. In Daisy Hill Nurseries, where the bulrushes grow, and in Daisy Hill Nurseries, blah, 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 and there's something about the boys court the girls as they please.
Well, that was always a year era, Rowan.
Oh, very much so. Skiffle was my era, and that was it.
But
Sad yesterday with us. We were at an event.
Yeah, I thought the Lord Ballyedmond got a lovely and appropriate farewell. I thought the Requiem Mass by Canon Brown,
Francis.
and the music was beautiful. And I must say, I thought the grace and the dignity of the service was lovely, and I felt the family, young Edward, spoke very well.
He did.
I must say, it was good to see. I seen obviously Martin Murdoch and Gillian Crumley very prominent in certain things, etc., and the whole Norberg team.
Yeah.
And I think that unfortunately, a very tragic and sad happening. But I believe Lord Ballyedmond will be very proud of how his family and indeed his work colleagues rallied round in a moment of sadness to once again portray the tremendous entrepreneurial spirit and indeed the jovial entrepreneur, but at least the complex character of which Eddie Hockey, I think, we all acknowledge.
Humanity is complex, but I mean, he more than most had this complexity.
Well, I think if you look at his achievements were phenomenal, and there are some people, if you give them 100 billion, they couldn't achieve what he's achieved in terms of business, in terms of exports, in terms of growth, in terms of reaching out to so many countries. And in terms of providing over 2,000 jobs in this area, very high quality jobs, 1,000 elsewhere. So, you know, he like every genius, there are elements which we'd all love to copy, but that's why they are a genius, they're unique. I think, to be fair, this area will always appreciate what he has done, and will continue, I think, to encourage Norbrook to develop its activities here in the Greater Newry area.
The word, Edward, the young man, the son, used the word bravery about him. Bravery.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. He said he had no fear, and I think, to be fair, he said that he thought some of that came from the fact that Eddie Hockey's father unfortunately died before he was born. I thought some of the comments of young Edward were very strong and very impressive. Martin Luther King was another interesting point, that Eddie was a great admirer of Martin Luther King. I thought that young Edward spoke very honestly and fairly about his father.
Suddenly it was a family It was a family occasion.
Well, it should be. I mean, and it was very appropriate that Caroline and James, and obviously Lady Ballyedmond, Mary, who would be, extremely well known in her own right in this area, very successful legal practice, etc. I thought they showed great dignity, and
dignity is a word.
And I thought the respect shown to them by the local community was as one would expect appropriate.
The weekend, on the Saturday down at the castle, Lady Mary, she was very, very, very solid in her dignity, solid there, welcoming people, sitting there beside the casket, people coming in. It was an entire day for her there, between 2 and 9 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah,
she didn't shirk it at all.
I think when sudden death particularly comes to any family, you can't be prepared for it. And I think equally, the other 3 people who were killed in the helicopter crash, they had the same experience. And young Declan Small, I know the people were
Declan's mum was at the funeral yesterday.
Yeah, and I believe that his body was received when it arrived in Mayo Bridge with a very spontaneous candlelit welcome, which I'm told by those who were
evening
there
time.
was very, very emotional. So,
Okay.
you know,
We've lost another. We've lost Austin Fitzpatrick.
a great man. I think Austin Fitzpatrick, founder of Fitzpatrick and Kearney Chartered Accountants, was one of Newry's most respected men for many, many years. He, personally, I always found him to be very affable, very knowledgeable, but always had an interest. And I was talking to him no later than actually early February, and he was, as always, very cheerful. And I must say, a man I have the utmost respect for, a man who I think has made a very significant difference to many people and many businesses in this area. And
His passing was not expected. It was a short enough illness. I'm
I
not
thi-
sure. Was it?
I think, to be honest, that he hasn't been enjoying great health recently. But as I said, I seen him. He was out with his family. I was talking to him actually in the Canal Court on a Saturday evening, no longer than 4 weeks ago.
It's interesting how these things all fine-tune our concept of mortality.
Well, you know, as we sit here this morning, Rowan, there's one thing we have to accept: death doesn't respect age, health, or anything else.
It's true.
Once we've been fortunate enough to come onto this earth, the only other sure thing is at some stage we're going to leave it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's return to business. You good old forecaster, you fellow. You were making a few forecasts, and they come out to be true in the budget.
Well, we had a bit of luck. I think we hinted that we thought there would be it would be a budget to encourage investment, and that's what it's trying to do. I mean, certainly we were hoping, if you remember, that they would increase the capital allowances, which is basically the tax incentive to invest in capital expenditure, capital equipment in business, and that was doubled. The annual allowance was doubled from 250 to 500,000. Also interesting from an Northern Ireland point of view, the announcement of the enterprise zone in Coleraine with the university. Interesting to see how that develops. Northern Ireland approximately got about 21 million more money from under the Barnett formula. And then the very exciting news about pensions, the relaxation of the rules in terms of the drawdown of your pension, your personal pension, your defined pension scheme. The flexibility of that has been increased. You don't necessarily have to take out an annuity.
You know something, I would say more than most, about people's fiscal common sense. If you give them the opportunity to draw down their pension in cash and take it and run with it, is that a wise thing to be doing?
No, well, I think, to be fair, first of all, I think you can draw down, not to continue the first 25% tax-free, and then you pay tax on the amount you draw down. The big advantage of the proposed new flexibility is that in many instances up to now, one had to buy an annuity. Now what they're saying is you can draw down the money, albeit that it's not an infinitive amount, but you can draw it down as you need it. And that actually is quite good, and that's to encourage people, I think, also to provide for pension, because it is really important, given the demographic age profile of the growing aging population, that we as a community recognise we can't spend everything. We have to save for those days when we're no longer earning money.
Yes, and the poverty is still there. Who was it, the Bible, that said the poor will always be with us? And where we find out today from 2 surveys there that Northern Ireland, we're continuing to struggle after the economic turndown. We're still in some poverty. The Nevin Economic Research Institute and the James Rowntree Foundation finding that the typical household a 9% drop in income, while the poorest 20% drop in income. That's down to 2 things it says here: an increase in youth unemployment and a rise in the number of people working fewer hours than they would wish to work.
Well, I think there's a number of issues there. I think we shouldn't be surprised, number one, that average household incomes in Northern Ireland fell by 5% compared to, 9% compared to 5% in the UK mainland. I suspect if you heard the figure for the south of Ireland, it would be nearer 20%. We have been shielded partly here in Northern Ireland because of, obviously, our high dependence on the public sector. And as I keep saying, there hasn't been a reduction in public sector wages or public sector employment. So we have been shielded partly in Northern Ireland. However, I think when you look under those figures, there's reasonable explanation for them. Number one, the fact that unfortunately lower income families have suffered more than the average income, I think you can attribute to 2 or 3 factors. Number one, the lower income families spend more as a proportion of their income on food and fuel. And food and fuel have been the major price increases over the last couple of years. The 2 points then you referred to yourself are more about the generic 9% figure. The strategy of many businesses was to continue to employ people, but actually to ask people to work less hours, to take a reduction in hours. And secondly, thankfully we've had a growth in employment in Northern Ireland for I think 8 or 9 consecutive months, but during that period, 2006 to 2013, I think the figures were, 2012 the figures were, we had a growing increase in unemployment. And obviously the fastest way to get out of poverty is to get into work.
Yes,
and to move forward. Yeah. So I think there were trends there that they're not, I don't think those figures are surprising actually. I think, to be honest with you, I think they're, if you take Northern Ireland's average income being considerably below the UK mainland, I think actually the figures, particularly at the average, is probably surprisingly lower than one might have expected. I think part of the reason for that is public sector.
Relatively benign.
But on the other side, I think there are positive signs, and you and I have talked about this. I mean, we are in a fragile recovery. The good news is inflation, I think, is expected to be announced today to fall to about 1.7%. The minimum wage is actually expected this year to be above inflation. And I think that so long as we don't get carried away when the uptake comes and we realise that I think the income levels we enjoyed in 2006, perhaps we may not enjoy for a long time to come. But I think we have all hopefully adapted to that changing environment.
Exempt from all of this, it would appear to be our public representatives, our councillors, who when they go into the new council, the new councils across Northern Ireland, they will have an increase in their allowances of 44%. How does anyone justify a 44% increase in the present climate?
Well, I suppose, Rowan, it's always easy to throw those type of jibes. I think, to be realistic, and I'm not here to defend public, there's a lot I would like to see different, but I think one has to be very careful in this. These people, rightly or wrongly, have chosen to serve the public. Number two, they're probably on call 24/7, 365 days a year. Now, I actually don't begrudge them reasonable expenses, but I think once they get that, then we need to judge the outcomes.
The outcomes. That's your mantra.
And I believe actually that I would like to see them, not them individually, but as an operation. I'd like to see the local councils, the merged councils, the super councils, focusing on what they have power over. Regularly I hear people talking, over they have no control over. That's the easy way. Anybody knows, talk about somebody else's problem, but not your own.
Yeah.
To be upfront about it, I'd like to see them focusing on what they have control over and making a difference at that level. And let other people who have control over other things deal with them.
It was interesting yesterday because one of the things they are discussing is the issues that Haas didn't bring resolution to. But Kyle Paisley, the Minister of England over there, Ian's son, said, look, on the days we're not flying the Union flag in Belfast City Hall, let's fly the flag of St. Patrick. What a lovely idea.
Yeah, perhaps. I'm one that believes that we just need to catch ourselves on any flags. I think, to be honest with you, you can't eat the flag.
No.
And I think that, this is a joke that we all think we have to put flags up and flags down. Personally, my view is, and it's a very draconian one, but it may be required in the short term if necessary we get rid of all flags.
Well,
I'm not sure we need to do that, but I think the original proposal on the selected days, I think one is being reasonable. That was originally agreed for Stormont. If it's agreed for Stormont, it's beyond me why it's not reasonable for the rest of Northern Ireland.
You see, I'm with you on this.
Why are we wasting so much time? Can somebody tell me, why are we allowing our public representatives to waste so much time, not just flags, looking backwards?
Yeah, but they're leading us in that way.
No, not. We're voting for them. The one
we have the ultimate sanction.
Yeah, the one sure thing we do know is that we can't change the past.
Yeah.
And it's really important, and I've said this to you before, re-business, and it's probably even far more important re-community life, that we don't allow the past to inhibit the future.
But that's what they're doing, as you say.
Well, I'm not passing that judgment. What I am saying is, I appreciate, as I've said to you earlier, politics is a very difficult profession. It's particularly difficult in the north of Ireland. In my view, virtually all those politicians could have earned far more if we're looking pure money out of politics. I don't believe they're going into politics for money. I think a lot of them are very able people. I think we have to be fair and acknowledge we've come a long way in this part of the world. But I, for one, wouldn't mind if they increased the speed. I want to go forward. And I'm willing to take risks as an individual. And I would ask other people to trust their neighbours and to take those risks. And really, we can't allow the small vocal minorities from time to time to hold us all back. And, you know, from the outside looking in, I've never been in politics, I've never been a member of a political party. From the outside looking in, I have to say that from a business and an economic perspective, we really have got to encourage and urge these people to take risks. Because remember, the person who never took a risk never got anywhere.
Is it your sense that you're very kind to them in speaking the way you speak? I would sooner give the 44% to the nurses or something like that. But I mean, if they get 44% and they increase, they bring you results. That's what we're talking about.
Rowan, I'm not for one moment saying the nurses aren't entitled to, but we're all only entitled to our outputs. And the bottom line is we want democracy and we need democracy. And to be honest with you, the complexities of peace are far more important than the simplicity of war. Now, whether we like it or not, in the environment we are, where you have two communities considerably apart at times, but equally working together many other times, that will probably give rise to over complexity of democracy in the short term. But I'm up for that. You know, I can now, you and I can walk down Newry. There are hotels now in Newry. There are cinemas now in Newry. You remember the time there weren't. So I think, to be fair, it really is important that we do acknowledge where we've come from. We do acknowledge these people have made tremendous achievements. But have they gone back the last 2 years? And that's the big question. Have they moved forward? Have they shown the tenacity to take risks? And are we willing to support them? And the big reason why they haven't taken the risks is they're looking over their shoulder and they're afraid. So I think we as individuals, if we want them to move forward, and maybe we don't, because in a democratic society,
I think you do them. I think you do them a great an unwarranted justice when you say they did this. It's the business community made Newry what it is. It was the business community who brought forward the city status. Again, people like yourself and O'Hare.
Again, I got to say to you, it was no one group, Rowan. Because if you don't approach this in a team approach, working together, everybody achieves more, it won't happen. And therefore, I would acknowledge that it was all groups. It was the council, it was the business group, it was the not-for-profit sector. It was everyone. Now, I read this area, I think there is a challenge. I think we have to ask ourselves the honest question of 10 years ago when we spoke with one voice, no matter what the political party or the grouping was, because we had our debates internally.
Yes.
I think, I'm not convinced we're now doing that. And I think that is a challenge going forward for everyone.
You're meeting the challenge by your academy, the FPM Business Academy. You've launched it in the last week. Yes,
last night it was launched actually. We had a great,
congratulations.
Very encouraging turnout of young people. This is really targeted at high achieving A-level students, and it's an alternative to university for them. It's seeking between 2 A's and a B or upwards. So, but we were very encouraged. It was a very informal evening, and there was a good two-way discussion between
parents.
Where
did you have it?
We had it in our office.
In your office over there?
Yeah. We had
what kind of people came?
We had A-level students and their parents from I'd say all the local schools, out as far as Dromore and Kilkeel.
Did they? I don't mean to be rude towards them, but did they understand the concept, or are they focused directly on a pathway that doesn't include the academy?
No. I think, to be fair, I think these young people, perhaps the biggest problem in the past was parents and the snobbery of parents, if the truth is told. It was more important your child went to university than your child ultimately got a good job. How stupid. But I mean, that's the snobbery. There was a major research done by CBI recently, and that's the conclusion. So we decided not to pitch in the schools.
You're a wise man.
We decided the market research showed us not to go into the schools, but rather to ask the careers teachers to identify, and then we invited the parents, because you have to always get the decision makers. So last night we were honest enough. We told the parents, we know the major barrier here isn't the A-level students, it's you. You're snobbery. And if you want to break that down, that's fine. In terms of the opportunities, the FPM Academy is what has brought together. It's a unique thing. It's bringing together the offering of a 5-year employment contract, along with bursaries, and believe it or not, and linking it to a leadership. It's for young leaders of the future, linking it to a leadership and management accreditation. Believe it or not, Rowan, it's very simple. If you go through the FPM Academy, now I stress this for high achievers, but if you happen to go through that particular line, you will be qualified as a chartered accountant potentially in 5 years, fully qualified. Even you'd have your exams over, believe it or not, in 4 years, but you wouldn't qualify. If you go down the university route, believe it or not, the minimum you can qualify is 6.5 years. That's doing a 3-year undergrad and a 3.5-year contract. Believe it or not, most people actually take a minimum of 7 years, because they do a couple of different options. They do a 3-year undergrad, a relevant 3-year undergrad, a 1-year postgraduate master's, which gets them exemptions on up until their final exams, and then they do a 3-year professional contract, which is 7 years. And quite a few people. We have a young lad talk last night. He's with us at present on a 1-year sandwich. He's doing a 4-year degree, and then will be do 3.5 years with us. So he's 7.5 years. And we've done a bit of research among our own people. And because some of them have gone for the postgraduate conversion, what they call conversion masters, which basically means you didn't do accountancy as your undergraduate. So whenever you did art or you did business, or you have to then do a postgrad, 1-year postgrad to convert into accountancy. They are all taking 7.5 years. So think about this. What we're saying to you is, and it's not for everyone, but if you want, and if you know that you see chartered accountancy as your pathway to future success and leadership around the world, because a chartered accountancy qualification can take you anywhere. You can do anything at the end of it. You can still do marketing, sales, turnover, banking. You want to do it at the church, charities. But if you want to do that,
that I had my life.
If you want to do that, then we think we're an exciting opportunity. And more importantly, the average student today pays student fees at university of at least course fees of around 10 to 11,000. The minimum they'd normally have as a student loan at the end of 3 years is 21,000, plus the 12 is 32,000. Believe it or not, if you come to the FPM Academy, we are fortunate enough to be selected. By the way, I believe we'll be grossly oversubscribed. The feeling we got last night is that we're going to be oversubscribed considerably. But if you're fortunate enough to get into that, you will have no loan at the end of when you're qualified as a chartered accountant. You'll be qualified 2 years earlier. And the only people who will have spent money is actually FPM, because we will invest £30,000 in you.
This sounds to me like a win-win situation.
Well, we're hoping. Before you go, Mr. Hand, I have to remind you, we're looking forward to welcoming you on Thursday morning.
Thursday coming.
Thursday morning, and and we'll offer an open invitation this morning, although people must book in advance with the Paula Kearney at the FPM Newry office. But, to the FPM post-budget breakfast with a difference, and this is with a difference. We're expecting over 200 of the leading business decision makers.
We're broadcasting live with you.
Yeah, and we always like to do first, and we think it's important that Good Morning Newry comes to Good Morning FPM post-budget breakfast, and
that's
we're at
what we're
the keys, and we're looking forward to that. And we promise everybody out there, make sure you tune in on Thursday morning.
Without a doubt,
Rowan will have a quality of guest far exceeding this one.
Well, don't do modesty. It's not a good idea. It's awful.
We look forward to seeing you on Thursday morning.
We look forward to it as well. I think, Damien, shall we go to the news hub? I think that's a very good idea. Let's do that.